Good morning, everyone. Good morning to our participants,
Good morning.
members of the
Good
panel.
morning.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
How are we all doing?
Stressed.
That's a given. So, good morning once again. Many of us are joining from our respective homes today. It's a rainy and cold morning here in Davao. I hope that the sun is a lot brighter from your end. Welcome to the second day of our GE Conversations, and I would particularly welcome you to the GE Conversations Baon-Bidahan. How did you teach COMM 10 in your CU? So, if we remember in 2018, we had a and even before 2018, we had a very serious discussion over building the content of the course and then planning in the methods of assessment and the manner of delivery. But when we designed COMM10 during the time, we have not been able to factor in what's going to happened during the pandemic. No one could have imagined the gravity of the pandemic and the magnitude of its impact on even higher education. So we had to redefine learning, including our learning modalities. And today, it's about time to touch base over our experiences and our strategies during the pandemic semesters and the opportunities and challenges that we have encountered. So for this conversation, we have 1.5 hours to devote, and then we have to stick to the time allotted for the panelists, and so that we can have ample time to address questions and share experiences as our 1.5 hours would allow. And then we will end the discussion at 9:45 for the synthesis and the closing program. And that would make us, or that would allow us to be on time for the next conversation session for Ethics 1 at 10:30 in the morning. So with that, joining us today is myself. I am Nelfa Glova. You can call me Nelfa or Nelf. From UP Mindanao, I'm going to be your moderator. And our assistant moderator is also from UP Mindanao, a faculty member of the BA Communication and Media Arts, Miss Michelle Gay Nidoy, or we can call her Mish. And our panelists, in the order of their presentation, please, to our panelists, you could turn on your video so that our participants would be able to see you and then connect with all of us. Professor Jerry R. Yapo from UPLB, sir. And then we have Miss Merle Dawn Comidoy-Acol from UP Mindanao, Merle. Hello. And then we have Professor Jermaine Beltran from UP Baguio. And also we have Professor Mishima Z. Miciano of UP Manila, who will be joining us with a pre-recorded presentation because she has an equally important event to attend to. So, okay, we will not. Okay, we will not let this go on further. We will proceed to the sharing of our panelists. Okay, I would like to introduce them. Our first member of the panel to share his experiences is Professor Jerry R. Yapo. Professor Yapo, Sir Jerry, spearheaded the institution of COMM10 as a new course in UP's general education program. He handles undergraduate and graduate courses in UPLB's Bachelor and Master of Arts in Communication Arts programs. He is on his second term as the director of the university's Office for Initiatives in Culture and the Arts. Professor Yapo is UPLB's outstanding teacher in the humanities and social sciences in 1996. Sir Jerry.
You're on mute, sir. Unmute yourself. You're on mute.
Perhaps Sir Jerry has a problem with the audio with his computer. Um, Sir Jerry, I would like to. Okay, here he is.
Naka-mute pa din, sir. We can't hear you. Can he be unmuted? Wala pa rin. Sir, you unplug your thing, your whatever that is, and then plug it in again. The earphones and the mic. Wala pa din. Oo nga, baka hindi connected yung audio sa Zoom. I think so, Ma'am Nelfa.
Yes, Sir Jerry. While you are fixing the problem with the audio in your computer, we would like to proceed to the next panel member. So I'm going to go back. We're going to go back to Sir Jerry later. Okay, so our next member of the panel is Merle Comidoy-Acol. She is a faculty member of the BA Communication and Media Arts programs in UP Mindanao. She is the co-author of Module 6, which is Intercultural Communication, and has taught COMM since 2018 to the present. Aside from teaching, she is also working as a radio news anchor. Merle, good morning.
Hello, good morning everyone. Good morning, Ma'am Nelfa. Clear po, Ma'am, ang audio.
Loud and clear. Yes, Merle, you can proceed.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and good morning. I would like to proceed right away to my sharing on the relevance of GE. For me, GE introduces students to a variety of disciplines, and this allows them to appreciate different fields of interest. This helps them reshape their thinking and improve their critical thinking also. Students who have no idea, for example, about the underlying principles applied in communication and media are introduced to new concepts and ideas. For example, my approach in teaching content is influenced by my experience as a media practitioner and a development worker. So I have more examples and activities in class that are media related. We had an interesting discussion on media convergence in Module 1, like how the landscape of mass communication has changed over the years. And I am also learning from the students, most especially that they grew up in a generation that utilizes technology a lot. There were many questions about media ownership and how political leaning affect content creation. On innovations and teaching, there were no significant changes in the activities, but I made some changes in my approach to teaching. Number one, I used to have individual activities, but in the remote learning setup, more activities were done in a group. And these activities require peer evaluation. There are group leaders who are tasked to communicate with me if there are any group concerns. So this actually made our communication easier. And for individual activities, it's more of a personal reflection and sharing of insights in our discussion forum. And the individual activities allow me to gauge the critical thinking also of each student. Second, on deadlines, although there are deadlines indicated per activity, I always adjust. I learned the art of patience. Whenever the students tell me that they can't accomplish some activities on time because of many reasons. And number three, my poor internet connection, most especially last semester, did not allow me to have regular synchronous classes. So I only met the students once per module. And since we only meet once per module, our synchronous classes became more of a reflection. Like students share their insights, and there were more sharing on what they did not know before and what they know now after reading the module and accomplishing the activities. And I found out also through the evaluation that the students appreciated that everything has been uploaded, like readings, the requirements, etc. And for this semester, I did something new. I tried starting the class with a game every time. So just to break the ice and to set the class in a good mood, because interaction is different on a different level now that we are in a remote learning setup. And then lastly, on the opportunities and challenges, first on the challenges, more than the usual internet connection problem and lack of learning resources for some students, the challenge actually was making how to make each module interesting to the students. The content, like content in general, is already interesting, but to make it more interesting, especially in our remote learning setup, especially to non-communication students, I consider that as a challenge. That is why I needed to give examples that students can easily relate to, such as those examples, or I mean, those that they can see on social media, what's viral or trending, and their personal experiences. I learned TikTok because I found it to be an interesting tool also for learning and knowing what's in and what's not sa part of students, and also the observations of reality on the part of the students. And opportunities, since I mentioned TikTok, maybe it's more on the utilization of more of various, or I mean, new social media platforms to make discussions more engaging. I have observed current trends such as TikTok to be an interesting platform to know what's being talked about by young people. So, for example, in our intercultural communication topic on the topic Filipino communicative behavior, we had a fun activity where the students really had fun doing it. They created a 60-seconder TikTok video on Filipino communicative behavior. It was viral that time on TikTok, so I utilized that. So it was actually fun. And then during our sharing, they appreciated it. So basically, that was just it. I just adjusted to the needs of the remote learning setup, the lack of resources, poor internet connection, and also trying to be in to the students. Yan lang po. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Merle, for sharing
you.
those very instructive experiences teaching content during this time. Sir Jerry, are you ready? Okay.
Sir, wala pa rin pong audio, sir. Sir, we cannot hear you po, sir.
Perhaps you would proceed to the next member of the panel. Okay, that would give Sir Jerry ample time to fix rather the problem. So our next member of the panel to share with us his experiences at teaching the course is Professor Jermaine Beltran. He is a faculty of journalism and broadcast communication at the Department of Communication, College of Arts and Communication at the University of the Philippines, Baguio. He completed his graduate studies at the University of the Philippines Open University under the Master of Development Communication program last year. His research interests involve students on, rather involve studies on journalism and broadcasting in the Philippines, the effectiveness of social media platforms, and marketing and public relations. Mr. Beltran is published in a number of international publications in Thailand and Indonesia. He also has written for a special edition of the local community newspaper in Baguio City. Beyond the academe, he serves the community through speaking and teaching engagements in schools, universities, and private companies. He also offers his services as a consultant for various UP and corporate events. Before teaching at the University of the Philippines, he worked as a news reporter in ABS-CBN Baguio, TV5 Manila, News 5, and the Manila Stringer for Channel News Asia, Singapore. So, Sir Jermaine?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share my experience on teaching content. I actually am still teaching this for the second semester, so I'm gonna relate this since I was a student for the UP Open University. So I learned and I experienced a lot of things about online, being a student online. So I was thinking, how can I teach content in the online world? So whatever experience that I got from my studies in Open University, I tried to adapt it to my content classes. So basically, studying online is really quite difficult, especially there are no boundaries between time, boundaries with the relationships also in school, in our families also, especially our students are at their homes. So I have three main points in my sharing. It will be the course site, the course content, and how I conducted my synchronous classes. So firstly, based on my experience and also with my other courses, in order to also help your students have a better way of somehow managing their time and also the requirements, one of the things that I've observed is, and have also experimented through the semesters, is to open the course topics or modules gradually. One experience that I have experienced before in Open University, if it's open, if all the modules are opened for everyone to see or the student to see, it's quite daunting. So one way to help them also to digest or to manage their time properly also is to just open it gradually, one unit at a time or one module at a time, and try to schedule it depending on how you think the students can handle it, especially with their requirements. And one thing that I have also experienced or tried to do also is to lessen the number of requirements per unit. So it could be either one think piece. That's what I use for my mini papers. And also one experience that one um, helpful tip share to you is also to change the words of your requirements. Like for example, instead of a paper, maybe it's a think piece. Instead of an assignment, change it into a learning experience assignment, so that the mindset of the students, it's more of an experience rather than just another requirement for the course. And I would agree with Ma'am Merle a while ago. Be gracious with your deadlines. As an Open University student, it's really difficult also to see the red deadline marking on your platform. For example, we use Moodle. If you're late, it's quite really stressful that you see the red marks it's saying that you're 1 minute late. It's okay to set deadlines, but maybe ask more extend more grace to your students. For example, if they're asking like 1 week, or for me, I give them for the month. 1 month to finish all of their sport learning activity for 1 minute, for 1 unit. I try to let them pass it by the end of the month. So be gracious with their deadlines because they also have a lot of responsibilities in their lives, especially at their homes. So there's the core site. Another thing that I have experienced and I have done also in my course is to mix up my course site with visuals with multimedia. I use video, photos, graphics, and interactive ways to engage with your students, like Mentimeter and Slido. What's great with Mentimeter and Slido is it's very visual and it's really engaging for the students. And based on my latest feedback with my students, because I also do uh, feedback surveys every after unit, they appreciated the way that how they have understood something. Like for example, common terms about communication. I used Mentimeter's word cloud so that I can see so this is what you understand. So this is what we can talk about in this topic. So that's for my course site. For course content, I focus more on scenario-based discussion questions over objective understanding of a certain topic. Based on my experience also, it's already quite no longer that in trend or not really that effective if you're gonna um, ask questions which you are just gonna ask like, what is this kind of concept or what's
Okay na
this
dapat yung
concept?
mic.
It's more of
So okay na yung mic
right. Thank you, sir. All right. So it's more of knowing how do they understand this topic in their own context or in their own specific ways or in their homes. So it would be much more grounded. No, GE the course will be much more grounded to their own understanding. So that's for my course content. And lastly, for my synchronous class, I make it like an event worth attending. So here's how I do this every day or every time we have a synchronous class. I name my class differently. So instead of synchronous class, I call it a virtual class or a discussion session so that their mindset will be fixed into thinking, I have to discuss with my teacher or I have to discuss with my professor. So that's one way to really, change the mindset. This is not just another class, but it's actually a discussion session and they have a say in their class rather than just, passively getting information from you as the professor or faculty. And since it's an event, I play music or videos before the class starts so that they can be a bit more relaxed when they come in. Because based on my experience also, when I go to a synchronous class, by just waiting is already quite stressful. So maybe just sharing a music video, no, or something that's connected with your class would be very helpful for students to, get into the mood of studying or discussing with you throughout the session. Like what Ma'am Merle have said a while ago, wake them up with a game that's connected to the topic. So there are a lot of interactive games that you could use online. One of the simplest games that I use is, especially if I have readings before they come into the class, I just unscramble the concepts and I ask, what is this word? Or unscramble this word. And that would be an easy way to engage with their students and just pick their minds, not too much, but at least know that they have read the modules. And like any performance, you have to have a break. So every after, or it depends how long or how heavy my topics are, I have screen breaks in between. So either 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It depends if my students no longer engage with me through the chat box through Google Meet. If I feel like they're already bored because they no longer talk with me in the chat box or even with their mics, I give them a screen break like 5 to 10 minutes. And lastly, be a storyteller and not a presenter. So most of the time, if there is a way to make your topics in a way that you can say it as a story, then it would be better for them to understand. Because as I have seen also with the modules, it's quite daunting and the topics are quite heavy. So if we storify in a way, the course will be much more easier to digest for the students. And of course, lastly, last point is record your meeting. They appreciate it because especially for those who don't have internet, don't have a stable internet connection during your time. What I have observed also from my feedback forms is they if they cannot join within your class time, they watch it again at night or in the dawn so that they can have a stable connection and to really watch your discussion properly. So that's my experience teaching content. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Germain. You've added into what the previous member of the panel has shared with us important points that could serve as an exemplar practice for teaching content at this time.
Okay.
Sir Jerry, yes, take it.
Okay. So, okay, I'm reporting live from the ground zero, the nerve center of the UPLB Community Pantry, wherein I also serve as okay, operations manager. So quite stressful. Okay, so I think excellent sharing of our colleagues from our colleagues from UP Mindanao and UP Baguio so far. So I will attempt to address the other things that they were not able to touch certain issues and concerns regarding COMM10. Okay, so uh, I think some of the most important issues are this. Number one, I think the issue of breadth versus depth. I think what a course like this attempts to do simply is to strike for breadth, lawak, more than depth, right? I think yung pagpapalalim ay within the expertise of the faculty and depending on the needs of the students. So if you think that students need more pagpapalalim ng isang konsepto and analytical tools, then that's the emphasis made by the teacher. Okay, right? Okay, so another thing is, of course, the issues on intellectual integrity. I think there were instances wherein students were able to hire the horror, no, of the services of a certain student, okay, to do papers for them. I think that's terrible. So what we did simply was to, okay, was to warn that student, okay, and then tell him, okay, that you're not supposed to do that. You can advertise your other services like editing presentation, but not to write papers for them. I think it's really a challenge to handle content during the pandemic. So what we did simply, okay, the modules are fine, well done. I think what we made simply were minor readjustments, like to simulate the game exercise. I think for a certain module like communication and identity construction, we had to come up with another summative activity. But the major innovation or the major modification that we did simply was to, okay, this one, reduce, to make light the students' direct plight and also to help faculty manage. Okay, submissions is to agree that we would only require one graded learning activity or formative assessment for every module and one summative activity for every module. And then we decided to come up, okay, with only one GLA or formative assessment for intercultural communication covering the last two modules and one summative assessment on cultural communication. And then we also decided, because the students are problematic in terms of two affordances. Okay, number one, power failure in certain areas. Number two, okay, inconsistent, okay, Wi-Fi connection. So we agreed that synchronous sessions or Zoom meetings be limited to at least one Zoom meeting or synchronous meeting per module. So on the average, we are striking for something like 6 synchronous meetings. Because the good thing about COMM10 is that the modules are well written. The modules are really meant for independent learning. The modules are really meant for asynchronous learners. So we needed to intervene in the synchronous sessions, a maximum of 6, just to, number 1, kumustahan, and number 2, okay, just to stress. I think we need to stress the importance of key concepts and analytical tools so that they are able to do, okay, their requirements very well. So challenging, but we're able to make light the students' direct plight by reducing the requirements, but not to reduce, but still maintaining certain standards, and at the same time, okay, making light, okay, the students' work, okay, by consciously, okay, returning, okay, most of the requirements and getting feedback. I think we try to, in other words, we try to balance honor and excellence with a generous amount or degree of compassion. So on that note, I think everything is going well with COMM10 sa UP Los Baños. I have to thank my colleagues, both from the Department of Humanities of the College of Arts and Sciences and the College of Development Communication for taking, I think for taking the cudgels of those, okay, students who are experiencing a lot of things, okay, during the pandemic. So on that note, I will just share you the slides, but these are the things that I want to emphasize, okay, from our end in UP Los Baños. So live from the Nerve Center of the UPLB Community Pantry. Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Sir Jerry.
Okay.
Yes. Finally, we've addressed that. So
Yeah.
we will there's a video presentation that you would like the Secretariat to please project on screen from Professor Miciano from UP Manila.
Nelfa, I'll just share the slides kung kailangan ng mga viewers, okay?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes,
okay,
sir.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much to the Secretariat for sharing that video. And also thank you very much to our members of the panel. Our discussion does not end yet. We are going to the Q&A portion of our conversation here, which is actually the conversation. We have listened and watched the sharing of the members of the panel. Most of their experiences may have resonated with us, and still, we are able to note that there are unique practices rather that are unique to the CU and unique to the faculty member. So the question, at the same time we might have as what I'm saying, that are unique from each other, very instructive for that matter, and we need to spotlight on this. The questions that you submitted during the registration process until today may help us flesh out the important aspects of our GE teaching experiences. And so with that, I would like to call in our assistant moderator Mitch to read for us the questions that we have now, and they have been, I think, curated thematically.
Thank you, Professor Glova, and thank you also to our panelists for sharing their insights. So our colleagues from the different CUs asked their questions, and actually some were already addressed during your sharing. So I think we can focus the discussion on the concerns that are outside of the topics that's shared by our panel. So there is a question from Sir Vicente Horlano of UP Diliman here. How do you effectively use the virtual synchronous sessions to maximize learning?
I think in my case, I think the limited number of synchronous sessions will just be there. I mean, I think the content modules are very good. So we just need the synchronous sessions to, I think aside from kumustahan, I think that's very important to know how they are doing, how they are coping. Because lately we've been experiencing a lot of absentees, in synchronous sessions, although that's not required. Okay, and what is important when you do Zoom sessions is really to ask questions from them, the things that are not quite clear, okay, to or with them. And I think what is for them to do well, the requirements, you have to emphasize key points and analytical tools. Remember, this is a critical perspective course, so they should know how, not only what is the problematic, okay, not tinutuhog, but also how. The analytical tools are important for them to do their papers well. So basically, kumustahan, and then emphasis on key points and issues in the module.
Okay,
Thank you,
what
Sir
about,
Jerry.
yes, Mitch? Yeah.
Our other panel, if you want to also share your experiences.
Well, as for me, same with Sir Jerry, maximizing the synchronous classes, specifically sa insight sharing. It's not more on the lecture type anymore because there are video materials naman that are already uploaded, wherein the students can just actually view it, supplementary to the modules. I also would like to support what Sir Jerry said, that what I like most about the modules that were of content was that it seemed to me that it was designed for remote learning.
Yes.
Na i-adjust mo na lang yung mga activities talaga. So hindi siya talaga mahirap. Kaya nga what I shared kanina sa innovations, nag-change lang talaga majority ang approach, but not so much on the activities kasi na-plan siya talaga siya ng mabuti. And so yun, more on sharing talaga ang synchronous classes para di masayang ang oras na mag-lecture na naman, ganun.
As for me, you don't have to finish the 1.5 hours of your class time. If you can just do, just as Sir Jerry said, is kung highlights din lang naman, then talk about the highlights and ask about it. Then kung matapos in 30 minutes, then why not? Because especially nga for those students with have limited prepaid load or unstable connection, you really cannot expect them to stay until the end of the class. So if you can make it until 30 minutes, why not? Sometimes I do it like a TED talk, so like 20 minutes, and that's it. If there are questions, we can do it after, or we can do it on a discussion forum over the course site.
Thank you, sir. I think connected also to the synchronous discussion is a question directed to Merle. what games do you break or what games do you use to break the ice and introduce the topic in content?
Actually, my games are not really that related to the topic, as in para siyang example kung may mga training,
Icebreaker.
Zumba, parang mga ganun. Icebreaker lang talaga siya. Example, we had, if you watched the Big Bang Theory na sitcom, I had this game, Fun with Flags. So, nag-flash ako ng flags, tapos I asked them anong bansa, mga ganyan lang talaga,
Okay.
just to break the ice. And then, you'll see that the students are already laughing, smiling, and then makikita mo rin na kahit game lang siya, napaka-competitive pa rin ng iba, mga ganon, something to just set the mood, to make them smile at least once before the start of the class. Yun lang.
Hello, Mitch. Perhaps we have participants in the session who would also be willing
To share.
the experience.
Yeah, it's time for the participants to probably share. I mean, some of their best practices, the practices that worked to accomplish certain objectives.
Yes. We are also excited to learn from them.
Yeah.
So perhaps we could ask from the CUs. Let's call the roll. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, my colleagues from UPLB, anybody who wants to share the practices that worked with your classes? I think the only problem is most of my requirements during the pandemic were written. So medyo limited, ano? I'm not as young as you are, so okay.
So probably we should, do we have someone who would like to? Yes, Mama Beanie.
Oh, Mabini, welcome.
Yeah, good morning to everyone. Well, this semester I happen to handle content both to my home unit, UPLB, and UP Open University.
Oh.
So, yeah, right. So I can actually compare the kinds of activities that I give, because for one, in UPLB, we have to adjust to the fact that there's internet connectivity issues, kasi hindi naman po talaga long distance or education ang UPLB to begin with. Unlike UPOU, when they applied for admission, it is assumed that they have internet connectivity. For Module 4, for example, communication and representation, for my UPLB students, I asked them to analyze a billboard advertisement of bench, men's wear. But for UPOU, I provide them a link of a video presentation, YouTube-based, of the same advertisement of bench menswear. Because
Okay.
I take into fact na limited nga ang connectivity, because for UPLB, some, as what Professor Yapo correctly pointed out a while ago, some students are actually attending classes using mobile
data.
or data. So you cannot require them to attend classes or even engage in group activities much as we want to.
Okay.
Because for one, challenging na nga yung pag-attend sa Zoom classes. And then they'd have to interact or, come up with group activities. Mahirap po yun, mahirap.
Thank you,
And then
Benny. Okay, right.
And another thing that I experienced at UPOU, based on my interaction with the previous FIC of content, they combined Module 5 and Module 6. Module 5,
okay.
Communication and Culture, and Module 6 is Communication and Intercultural, communication. And
Okay.
I did that.
Yeah, that's perfect, Benny, kasi towards the end,
Nakamute ka, sir.
I think that's a good point. Sige, okay. That's a good point. Okay, we're going towards the end of the SEM, so attendance ay bumababa na. There's some point, there's wisdom in combining the last two modules. Intercultural comm.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So, Mitch, perhaps we have another question there.
I think this is more on the activities, no? So, sir and ma'am, how can we ensure that student submissions are really their own? Please share tips. So that is a question from Ma'am Luis Villanueva of UP Los Baños.
I think I raised that issue, right? Okay, because of that, we were able to check the one doing it, and he was reprimanded, and then he promised not to do it. He can advertise his other services, but not to make papers sa mga estudyante. I think we're interested in the practices of students from other CUs. If they have encountered a similar case.
Yes, perhaps we have colleagues here. When Sir Jerry mentioned that, I was that's quite a new to me, because I am very sure that we have not had that kind of experience in Com10, at least in UP Mindanao. But yes, there could still be others that may have experienced that. But I would also hazard a guess that not so much, Sir Jerry, or your experience.
Not so many, sorry. I think dalawa lang naman. Pero I mean, just imagine the multiplier effect. Or just imagine if he can do that, if he's also doing that in other courses, right? Okay. Dalawa lang naman, only two.
Okay, some other sharing, both from our participants.
Yeah, Ma'am Nelfa, can I just ask the other panelists to address that question?
Yes.
In terms not of plagiarizing or having papers manufactured, but by when students work with media, and the nature talaga of a lot of multimedia production is that they are mishmashes, di ba? They are, ano na nga yan, tawag dyan, pastiche. You really riff off existing work, right? And a lot of it is really derivative. So is that an issue? How do you address that? I suppose that is a key communication 10 concept that ought to be, or practice, that might be discussed with this generation of media users in particular.
In my case, sige, sir.
Sige, on point, Dean. Tama yan, I think we also have to tell them, remind them constantly that they have to practice, proper citation. They can take off from the modules, but of course they have to properly credit the sources of their ideas. Instances, dalawa lang sa amin, sorry. Okay, dalawa lang talaga yung instances.
So, yeah, Merle, how did you do that?
Sa akin din, ma'am, lahat ng mga papers meron talagang references. Tapos, I always check it. Google ko talaga siya. So far, I didn't have any experience naman on issues on plagiarism. Maybe on content creation, especially mga videos na pinapagawa sa students. May mga influences na makikita mo na sa mga nag-viral na mga videos, and parang influenced sa ganun ang kanilang mga ideas. But I don't think naman na it's like plagiarizing the work. It's more of like being influenced sa ganyan na klase na content creation and such. And every sa first day ng class, I always give them like a writing na assignment, something that's for me to gauge the individual na level, kung paano mag-isip ang isang estudyante. And then the next time na may submission na naman ng individual na paper, and if I see it's really like there's a mismatch sa writing style, sa mga ganon na klase na mga like pag meron lang akong ma-feel na there's something off, is-search ko just to find out if that was plagiarized work or not. But so far, wala naman po akong experience na ganyan.
Okay, thank you, Merle. There is a comment here posted in the chat box from Ma'am Maybell Fernandez Valiado. In addition to that, it says, when in doubt, I usually chat with the student to answer another question related to the topic to check if she really did the paper. Okay.
Yes, certainly that's a good practice. I mean, you can check the consistency of the output of the students. Okay, if you're able to, to examine the first submission and then, makikita mo na. And when in doubt, you can always ask the student.
Yes, yes, sir. And then, well, we have turned it in now, so that makes the job a lot easier. Although there is a caveat with the use of turn it in, it flags down everything. So we see that it's 75% red flag. But then, some of the concepts that cannot be actually translated into another term are also flagged down. So it adds up to the percentage of similarity count. So we have another question.
Also connected to activities, no, sir, ma'am, and I think this is very relevant to teachers who have been handling content for several semesters. So this is a question from Sir John Mervin Embate of UP Baños. How did content students in the previous semesters under remote learning fare in terms of their ACAD performance?
Okay, Sir Jermaine.
As of now, I can't gauge it yet since it's still my second semester. But based on my initial survey or feedback with my students, even within this semester, they see that they can see communication in different ways. It's no longer just, he said, she said, or just on the media, but they think that in Soksai, this is how I can see communication. Even in ComSci, I can see that it's not just ones and zeros, but I can actually communicate in a better way. So they see the world in a different way, especially with I always remind them that in every topic, you should always take in another person's shoe, no, or another, like for example, it's Foucault or Courteau or whatever. Isipin nyo na iba, pag ako, ito yung iniisip ko. Pag ibang tao naman, isipin nyo kung ano iniisip niya so that they can have a much more holistic perspective on their own disciplines also. So not only in the sciences or not only in the communication discipline, but also in other those who are studying in the sciences or social science.
Okay, thank you, Sir. Merle, any addition?
To add also to what Sir Jermaine mentioned, I think that since 2018 na naturo ko siya, para wala siyang significant na like change sa academic performance like in comparison sa mga students from 2018 to now, because napansin ko napaka-involved ng generation na ito sa communication and media. They're very aware of like they're not that knowledgeable sa principles like the theories, but whenever I introduce it to them, like napaka-involved nila. Based on my observation, they're really interested because it's critical. There are more critical analysis na involved. Examples sa political rhetoric when we analyze political speech, doon nila mas na appreciate na bakit how Filipino vote, like the minds of the Filipino voters, something like that. So it's really parang lumaki sila na dito na lahat ang communication and media like present na sa buhay nila. So mas madali na parang decipher nila ang lahat ng mga concepts. Mas easy siya actually na ituro.
Thank you, Merle. Okay, Sir Jerry. We have here an additional.
Mishima, Mishima, are you here? We'd like to hear from UP Manila, Mishima. Is
She's
Mishima
not here,
here?
so
Oh,
probably could
yeah,
maybe.
okay. Yeah, I'm very happy that I think based on your feedback, I think we're seeing the relevance of COMM10 in various disciplines. That truth and reality is much more complex, much nuanced than what it is. I think that's very important.
Yeah. So yeah, on that note, we have a sharing here in our chat box. I'm
Oh,
Steph Yaska from UP Baguio. One thing that my students appreciated is that outputs don't necessarily have to be written outputs only. They have free
yeah,
reign to create the format of their output, whether artwork, PowerPoint,
yeah,
written paper, etc., as long as they answer the questions of the
right,
assignment. But
right,
yeah,
ano. Yeah,
talking
tama siya.
Yes, talking about translating content during the into learning during the pandemic, we have here a very interesting question in the chat box from a member of the GE Council, from Ma'am Nak Kimwell Gabriel. How do you integrate or mainstream gender in your course?
Oh, gender is all over.
It's a deep
Gender
thought.
is all over the place, right? Okay, so I think that's incumbent upon us to input gender issues and concerns in every module.
Merle and Sir Germain?
I think in media, in the media and representation,
Yeah.
I mean communication and representation module, there was an activity na i-analyze ng students ang representation ng media, mass media on gender, racism, mga ganyan. So basically na-touch siya, lalong-lalo na doon kasi may reading talaga na nag-allot ng more insights on gender, not just gender, racism, social class, mga ganun po.
Sir Germain?
I agree. Yeah, I agree naman na it was touched there, and siguro also add more resources other than what's on the module din. Marami naman ding mga makikita ngayon, especially sa mga iba't ibang mga studies or sa journals din na baka pwede kayo magdagdag dun sa nasa modules namin. But basically, it's already touched within the content modules.
Okay.
I have to modify my statement a bit. Although ideally, in a perfect universe, I mean, gender should all be in the modules. But I think very pronounced ang gender issues and concerns dun sa communication and identity construction. Okay,
Yes, sir.
including LGBTIA, but also most importantly, I have very interesting, I think, material for gender issues in communication and representation.
Yeah, to add up to that, we have Professor Vargas from UPV. She's raising her hand. Mama Beth.
Oh,
Hello
Babette.
to you. Hello, Sir Jerry. We're
Hello,
Facebook
Babette.
friends.
Okay.
Morning. I just want to share my own experiences. This is only the second time that I'm teaching COM10. No, I attended the GE workshop when the university first designed the GE course on COM10, but I was not part of it. And then the first time I taught it was, I think, 2 years ago, second semester, and I really enjoyed teaching it because my students then were psychology students, and they were
Oh.
really very hyped up. They're very, very intelligent students. Uh, the second time is the present one. I was taken aback when I was assigned to teach it because one of my courses in the major in the program got closed. It was dissolved because there was only one enrollee. So at the last minute, I was assigned to teach COM10, and I wasn't able to prepare very well for it for remote learning. But fortunately, the content module is really designed for
Yeah.
remote learning. It's really very good, for our remote learning system. So I did not have a hard time in the area of the content of the module itself, but the references and in particular the videos in module 2, I think on what's this rhetoric, no, I found them quite outdated. no?
Okay, right.
In the module, the videos were those pasang sang Tacloban na surge, storm surge rather in Tacloban, and then there was this film director, sino nga ba yun? Yung
Joel
nag Joel
Lamangan.
Amangan, yeah. So I thought, sabi ko, I have to replace this, no? So what I did, I replaced the storm surge with President Duterte's appeal
Oh.
at the start of the pandemic.
Oh.
And then, ang second one, ang Lamangan's video, I replaced with, sabi ko, maybe the students will find this closer to their heart. Yung UN speech ng isang member ng BTS.
Oh.
Kim Namjoon delivered a speech before the United Nations on loving yourself. So I replaced that.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
Tapos nag-enjoy sila when they analyze it. Tapos yung speech pa na, meron pang isa, the speech of Grace po yata who was running for president. Sabi ko, I have to replace this. Lumang
Okay,
video na ito.
right.
So
Yeah.
I replace it with US President Biden's inaugural speech. So yun yung major changes ko na ginawa sa mga module, yung mga videos na yun. And then I agree with Sir Jermaine na i-upload lang per module yung
Yeah, per module, right.
Yeah, kasi for one, sabi ko hindi ako naka-prepare very well for it, no? So it gave me time to go over every module to make the necessary changes. So yun yung ginagawa ko sa LMS namin sa UP Visayas. I upload it part by part lang. Pero ang mga formative activities, what I did lang, would you believe I haven't ever met my class na synchronous session yet? Yes. Because marami sa kanila yung nagkakaproblema sa, not so much sa internet connection, sa kanilang pang-load.
Oh
no?
my
So,
God.
what I found more effective, I formed a private chat group sa Facebook. Kasi Facebook is libre.
Oh,
So
okay.
we communicate frequently over the Facebook Messenger group. Tapos I notice yung iba, pero kung shy sila siguro mag-share whatever they need to share sa synchronous session, they really open up sa sa Messenger they send direct messages sa akin, no? So I think it's more effective para sa class ko na mag-chat na lang kami rather than meet synchronously. Pero before the semester ends, I really have scheduled one synchronous session kasi may activity ako na papagawain sa kanila. So yun yung ginawa ko. We haven't held any synchronous session yet, but we communicate frequently over the messenger groups sa Facebook namin. And then what else? Yung formative, going back to the formative assessment, I designed certain questions after each unit. Tinatawag ko yun na SQE, self-questioning exercise.
Yeah.
No, so they can answer these questions on their own. Pero at the end of the module, I make them write a short essay na they submit over the LMS ng UP Visayas. Tapos parang na yun, compilation na ng mga sagot nila sa mga SQEs. Tapos they should cite their sources. Pero sabi ko, most of the sources that they should cite should be from the readings that were assigned to them. So yun yung
Ma'am, probably some of the practices we can share in the chat box. There are so many practices that are being shared in the chat box right now. We cannot read them all, but we can document them and send them through all the participants of COMM10 to add up to what we have discussed for now. The time is 9:34. We are going to end the conversation at 9:45. So we have raised hands here from Ma'am Alice Edeva. And also we have another one who would like also to share with us her experience translating COMM10 with science students from the sciences. That would be Anna Olivares Dizan after Ma'am Alice.
Good morning, everyone. I'm from UP Manila. Just disclaimer, even though I'm part of the COMM10 faculty, I have yet to teach COMM10 online. I've been assigned other courses, and so my sharing with the rest of the participants would stem from my experience in teaching face-to-face. But this is also to address Ma'am Vargas's comments or concerns about some of the activities being outdated, because I think that the good thing about COMM10 is its flexibility in terms of its in terms of the activities. So just to clarify, we made the modules. When we came up with the modules, those were the issues at the time. So the elections, the Tacloban search, but we continuously update our modules to include up-to-date activities or events. Last time I taught COMM10, one of the speeches that I made my students analyze was the commencement speech of Attorney Theodore Te. The speech that he delivered during the UP Manila commencement address. I made them identify the exigence, the rhetorical situation, etc. And so, since it really depends on what's happening at that time. And so, in terms of digital rhetoric, the last time I taught COMM10, the issue then was the ABS-CBN shutdown. And so that's what I made them, analyze. And so, ma'am, we can really be flexible about it. We can, we can include, news, current events like, for example, tweets regarding the community pantry, etc. in terms of digital rhetoric. And so, yeah, that's what I like about COMM10. And I'm actually looking forward to the semester when, I'm able to teach COMM10. Although, no pressure from my COMM10 coordinator. Okay, I'm willing to yield to those who would like to teach it from our department. Thank you.
Very, very, very interesting. Contextualization, Prof. Adeva. I think we look forward to more shares from, I think, UP Cebu. We haven't heard somebody from UP Cebu.
Yes, sir. But before that, we have, let's have Anna first from UP
Okay.
Mindanao, which is a neighbor of UP Cebu.
Okay. Okay.
Anna?
Hello po,
Ina.
good morning. I am Ina from UP Mindanao. It's my first time to handle this course, and nagkataon na yung mga students ko, they belong to the hard sciences like architecture and applied mathematics. So the challenge is making sure that they are really appreciating the course. Well, that's the nature of a GE course, but it doesn't just stop at appreciation, but most importantly, the application of the course to their discipline. And it has always been challenging to be purely interdisciplinary, but I strive to strike a balance between humanities and the hard sciences.
Yes.
Because as a GE student before in UP, I must admit that some of the science-based GE courses overwhelmed me, and the use of the jargon and technical concepts might be too difficult to understand. So now that I handle content, especially that it's in a remote learning setup, I make sure that students, especially those who are not in the humanities, are not overwhelmed with the too much content technicalities and gobbledygook. So I try to make it more relatable to their situations and everyday life scenarios. So for my architecture students, I try to allow them to analyze how communication elements interplay when they are making a blueprint.
Okay.
What do the images say? How can you market a design? How can you persuade the client to buy your design?
Okay.
For my midwifery and nursing students before in UP Manila School of Health Sciences, we analyze misinformation and disinformation on health-related campaigns on social media. We also discuss the effectiveness of the Department of Health campaigns and its effect on the knowledge, attitude, and practices of the patients. So it's a matter of making it relevant and really
Yeah.
applicable, especially that communication is everywhere. So yun po, thank you.
Yo, thank you very much. Speaking of timeliness, Yeah,
Yeah.
Nelfa, speaking of timeliness and being relevant, I think for speeches, I think I've been using the Toastmaster speeches for a long time. Ang gagaling. Speaking has become performative. I think the good mix of, logos, pathos, and ethos. Ang ganda yung reaction nila sa mga Toastmaster speeches.
So yeah, kanina tinawag ni Sir Jerry ang UP Cebu. So
Yeah,
like
UP Cebu.
from UP Cebu and also from where I came from, UP
UP
Tacloban.
Mindanao.
UP
Oh,
Tacloban. Yes, experiences and sharing. After UP Cebu and UP Tacloban, we will
okay. Close.
ask Mitch to read a number of very important points in the chat box.
Okay.
Anybody from, we have a participant from UP Cebu. Pwede bang magtawag ng participant from UP Tacloban?
Hello, good
I'm sure
morning.
yes.
Oh, nandyan na.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, this is Irma from UP Tacloban.
Irma Tan, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There was a radical shift for me as a teacher of COMM because I come from a face-to-face setup.
Oh, yeah.
I've been teaching for some time, and it was really a challenge, the the shift from face-to-face to remote. But nonetheless, I found it quite interesting that students actually are more what is it? How do I say it? They are more designed probably, to be able to adjust easily. And our main difficulty was basically the technology.
Oh.
It had to do with the hardware because many of our students had limited resources. So many of them found themselves being dependent, for example, on technology. Many of them did not have the computers, for example. And of course, there's that problem with computer signal, digital connection, especially those coming from Samar. And I also realized that we have many students coming from nearby provinces, like even as far as Legazpi or Sogon. And from what I understand in my conversations with them, is that they're not well off. So they have such difficulty connecting. So I would get calls as late or as early, depending on how we look at it, as 2 a.m. or text messages. These students asking questions, and initially I felt the anxiety, of necessarily responding immediately to these students because I'm not used to that kind of setup. But later on, I realized that probably this is the only time for them to be able to connect with me. So I also tried to relax and reply when I wake up, for example, in the morning. But immediately, especially the first time that we went remote, I had to always tell myself that, hey, it's not about you always. It could be that, these students are probably up because, young people like to stay up late, or that's the only time. And then I realized that that's the only time where they had good signal to be able to communicate with me, send text messages. Sometimes they would ring and make a call, try to make a call if they probably are also very anxious about trying to reach their teacher. And I said, what is this? Is this an emergency, or something? So those were the birthing pains of content in the remote setting. But now I've also learned to relax. Also, the students, I realized that they're rather interested in sharing, especially about their personal experiences. That sometimes it's a challenge because you have to draw them away from what is personal, from their own wellspring of ideas only, and draw them to the readings. For me, that's a challenge because that's one important realization, that many times students refuse to read. They have a term for that. Mag-gemma-gemma na lang sila. Mag-kemi-kemi. But they try to wing it, and they lose so much because sometimes they refuse to read. And of course, let's face it, the readings in Compton are rather challenging, if I may say so. And the first few readings, for example, they are rather long. So I like it that they ask questions. So it's important that we connect with them. We respond to their questions at whatever time we are able to respond, hindi yung 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. Because talaga, honestly, initially, I felt the anxiety the very first time that I went remote because of that. Yung they send you text messages and you see that it's at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., or they text you at 11 or at 12 midnight. And I said, hey, relax. It's not because, there's an emergency, but probably this is the best time for them to connect because of poor internet connectivity. Yun lang naman yan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Irma, for sharing. You have not only shared about the how to do it effectively with students, but then you've also highlighted in your sharing an aspect that we have not often talked about, and that is that in this learning continuum there is also the situation of the faculty member, and the faculty member could also be anxious as much as their our students or learners. So, UP Cebu, meron ba tayong hindi kasi nakikita dito kung while we are waiting for other sharers, can we call in Mitch to read for us some of there are many comments in the chat box.
I think there's an interesting sharing here by Ma'am Louise, no? Sabi niya, one of the things din po that my students like is that identity survey. I make them answer at the start of the module 3. So I've been doing that since I started teaching content 2 years ago. So I have accumulated data na po for my UPLB students. I also answer the said quiz so that they get to know me. And it's a good way to start module 3. So I think that's a good point to make. Communication is also two-way. So it's a good way for students to get to know you. Para hindi lang tayo as teachers yung nakakilala sa kanila.
Very good, Luis. Something is said about speaking the vernacular, right? I think the Philippines is a linguistic paradise. We do allow students to have discussions, I think, to surface their insights in the vernacular, whether it's Ilocano or Waray or Filipino or Tagalog. Okay, that's not a problem, right?
So, Mish, other comments?
So one comment also from Sir Wen Raimundo of UPOU naman, no? So sabi niya, real talk, FB Messenger, social media really facilitates engagement with students. It's a challenge to reconcile this with UP ITDC webinars, which discourages the use of FB Messenger, etc. for communicating, though they recommend Signal as an alternative. So I think that's also connected to Ma'am Vargas' point earlier. Now, when you use social media, it's more personal, so the students are not shy when reaching out to you guys. And then I think one of the recent comments from Mabel is during synchronous discussions, I allow my students to share in the vernacular nga daw po. Opo, sabi po ni Ma'am Mabel yun. Another one from UPLB, so from IMAC, aside from using examples relevant to students, I think it's also important to integrate Philippine or Eastern theories into our modules dominated by Western comms and media theories, especially those from dead white men, not just in modules 5 and 6, but throughout the modules. UP Press Communication and Media Theories, edition by Ronaldo Valentino, etc., is a good reference, I think.
I think that's a major reference, okay, in the course. Rolando Tolentino's theory book.
Meron pa ba tayo dito, Mish?
Si Sir Jose Ogates naman po, actually he is adding more movies to his modules, no? So one of the movies he shared is Wag the Dog. And then yung isa naman daw po is Arrival, which is students niya really appreciated it. It's about linguists who is tasked to establish communication with aliens. It touches so many concepts found in content modules.
All right. Okay. Anyway, we have 5 years to meet again and probably propose revisions, okay, in the module.
We can still have another sharing. I think that our time would allow for us to do that. Okay. Can we go back to UP Cebu or even UP Visayas?
Yeah, UP Visayas. We've only heard Miss Vargas, no, Professor Vargas.
Jude, do you want to share an added perspective to our discussion today?
Hi, Ma'am Nelfa. Good morning.
Hi,
Hi, sir. Good morning. Wait.
Good morning, Jude.
Just give me a second.
Okay.
Okay, good morning. Nice
Good morning.
virtually. I did not teach COMM 10 uh, in the remote setup, but maybe I can just highlight what I did for Module 1 because sometimes it can scare a lot of people for me, considering that we are using OMS, orality, and literacy. But when I taught COMM 10 in the face-to-face setup, I introduced a very local example, which is our Panay Bukidnon. Just to contextualize um, that particular module, that orality progressed to literacy, but it all started with, for example, here in the Visayas, we have our own epics. So that can be a very good example. And also, I've been using a lot of videos about there's this series called "What Would You Do." Although the setting is very American, but it poses a social dilemma, and it represents how people would react, how people would communicate. So that can be a very good way also to improve video choices, video options. For rhetoric, I also introduced or crafted actually what I call the rhetoric quiz. So I would show them videos and students would identify whether it does present a rhetorical question or not. And then for gender, I also highlight not only I explore gender not only in representation but also how do media treat gender. So for example, how is gender represented in advertising, even in the film industry, in the TV industry, how is gender represented? For example, I even introduced the question of how many female directors do we have here in the Philippines and across the world. So that can be a very good, because sometimes if it's just all male, then definitely the perspective or the output can be totally different from. So those are just some of the things that I did in the past couple of years.
Thank you. Thank you, Jude. There's a comment in the chat box that actually connects to the video presentation from UP Manila by Professor Miciano. The point being raised here is that some students who are taking communication or COMM 10 do not have background in communication. So
how do you address that?
Yeah, this is a challenge that professors in COMM 10 have been addressing. So the Mom Louise was sharing this in support of Ma'am Enna's perspective of anchoring the lessons to the specific disciplines of students and also what is relevant to them personally and also academically and future in the future professionally. So it's 9:54. We could note there are numerous comments in the chat box, and also there are questions that were being raised that we cannot anymore address for this session. But I think that it becomes clear not only for for all of us who are participating in this particular conversation, but also for the members of the GE Council, that the conversation should go on, not just for now, but then continue in the days ahead, knowing that the questions that are being posed there are also present to us interesting thoughts to ponder on and flesh out. And also the comments here are they deserve to be documented and shared among all the people who are involved in the teaching of COM10. So I think that the conversation should go on, and what remains for us there is to probably plan out how we are going to implement this continued conversation. So with that, I would like to thank everyone. I would like to thank the warm participation from our participants across the CUs. I would also like to thank the members of the panel for sharing their experiences and also giving insights to, especially to the questions that were being posed. I would like to thank the assistant moderator, Mish, for helping us put shape into to this conversation, and also those who have shared from the participants. I would like to thank also the technical and the technical staff and the secretariat and the members of the GE Council who are around. So I would like to also thank specifically Francis Ivy Balierta from the ILC UP Mindanao for taking down the notes to be presented for our synthesis. So we're going to, after all the sharing, we're going to synthesize those points.
Okay. Ma'am Nelfa, is what that's
Yes.
okay na? Oo.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure I can be heard. But hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this conversation. It's only an opening conversation, as Prof. Nelfa has clarified. It's intended to break the ice. We obviously need to get together. I mean, like each group of GE faculty needs to get together to discuss particular issues with regard to each course. So a number of points have already been raised today. So on behalf of the, okay, I think if you might recall in terms lang of when to pick up the conversation again, certainly you can do so informally, but we were also, that PWG was also thinking about the possibility of each course group having a workshop at some point, maybe during the mid-year. So that is still in discussion. For now, as you know, this is the fourth conversation in the series that started yesterday. And there are two more after this. So before I go to that, I might forget. I wanted to, on behalf of the TWG and OVPA, thank our moderator today. May I ask Steph to flash the certificate of appreciation? Our moderator, Prof. Nelfa M. Glova of UP Mindanao. Thank you, Ma'am Nelfa. And also our assistant moderator, Michelle Gay M. Nidoy, also of UP Mindanao. Thank you very much. And of course, our panelists, we have Professor Jerry Ariapo of UPLB, our course coordinator as well when the course was still being developed. And I think you missed the name. Ms. Merle Don Comidoy-Acol of UP Mindanao, right? And then Prof. Jermaine Beltran of UP Baguio, James Beltran of UP Baguio. And I was trying to think about Prof. Beltran's nickname. I was going to say, it's not Jerry, it's not Jermaine, it's James. Okay, and of course, Professor Mishima Miciano of UP Manila, on behalf of the, presenting on behalf of the UP Manila team, as she put it. And all of you who participated in the discussion by articulating your comments orally or in writing through the chat box, and everyone else who has been, I'm sure, actively participating, even if they did not actually put down a particular comment. So it's been a fruitful conversation, and we hope to have more. And you are invited to the next one. The other two conversations today. At 10:30, we have the conversation on, is it Ethics 1 or CAS 1? Ethics 1, okay. And then at 1:30, there's a third conversation. So thank you and see you all later today in a few minutes.
Yeah, before we go.
Oh, there's a photo op. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Everyone, if you can, if you are able to open your videos, Steph will take a photo of all of us. Paano ba to? Gallery. Okay. Sige. So Steph will tell us when it's time to stop smiling. In the meantime, we must. Okay.
3 more slides. 1, 2, 3. Last. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Happy Tuesday. See you later.
Yeah, thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you,
Dami
Sir
natin.
Jerry. Hello.
Yeah, I think we had enough time for sharing.
Panel. Hi, Nelfs.
Hi, ma'am.
Hello, yeah.
Congrats.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, pero I hope I made sense.
Yes, sir. Thank you for sharing. Thank you,
Okay.
panelists.
Thank
Ma'am Pat,
you.
thank you.
Din Pat, thank you. Nelfa, thank you.
Salamat din, sir.
Panelists, thank you. Attendees, ang dami kanina. 90 plus, ha?
Pakipaalala po yung evaluation form.
Okay. Maraming salamat, UP Vice President for Academic Affairs.